Hello, everyone. We are here because this is a long time coming. We're here to debunk Rey's and Mary Sue, and we're going to do that by taking apart this prominent video by Literature Devil. Why Rey is a Mary Sue and Luke Skywalker is not. Any thoughts, Choco?
No, it's something I've seen before, but it's every now and then I will have people in my comments who are saying things like, she definitely is, and I'll ask why, and they're like, well, you should watch this YouTube video. Oh, okay, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what we're going to do right now. We're going to watch it through and through, and we're going to pause it as soon as we have something to counter. And just to be as charitable as possible to this person, we are not going to use further information than he has or they have. We're just going to argue straight from where they are arguing from.
I'd like to open this video with a quote from the great Han Solo. That's not how the Force works.
I'm stopping it here because I'd really like to know if this person really knows how the Force works, but
That doesn't seem like it. I mean, just already, if that's the quote you're starting with on proving someone is a Mary Sue, it's already not quite relevant, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Because the dirty truth behind a Mary Sue is that it is ultimately a product of bad writing. But
hold on, I'm stopping it there because how do you qualify that statement? Product of bad writing. Because I'm pretty sure you could point to a lot of comics where there was stuff that you didn't like, but let's not get ahead of ourselves and say that they are bad writing, they're badly written. But like
so we're already in problematic territory, because for their definition, it has to be something that is disliked by a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if the purpose of defining something is to define it, if you meet the definition, you are that thing. I think he really wants to characterize a Mary Sue as being a negative thing, which I would agree with. But the problem that he was running into is that Superman meets his definition and he likes Superman,
right.
So he has to twist it in order to not, and that's just bias. But yeah. we'll see what his true definition is.
From laws to people to plain logic and common sense.
I'm gonna stop it right here because,
like Batman,
right? Well, first of all, this definition is problematic in the sense that a protagonist will always see Deus Ex Machina or the universe and plot bend to them, because otherwise, if it weren't for the protagonist, we would not have a story. Right? So if that character is in a dire pinch and they're about to die in the first minute of the movie, would it be the universe and plot bending to see them rescued? I would argue yes. But I also say that's not a Mary Sue. That's just the story requiring the hero to continue forward.
Yeah, I mean, like, James Bond automatically falls into this category when he's running with a handgun facing an army of people with like rifles and in like crow's nests, and he's picking them off and doesn't reload. How many times has Batman been able to like hack Brainiac's tech, which doesn't actually make sense?
Can you hack Brainiac's tech?
There's no way a human should be able to, especially if someone has amassed tech from across the universe that's already far more advanced than anything we have. It's not like a USB port is going to plug into it,
or an R2 like little screwdriver port.
But that's the plot bending. The plot bends to Batman all of the time. His fundamental definition doesn't work in and of itself.
But that describes every protagonist ever. Some ill-bred ignoramus might call, as a cloud of Dorito dust puffs whimsically into the air. But that would be incorrect, let alone defeat him. Okay. These are what we'll call Mary Sue moments.
This is...
So, question.
Yeah.
Would Luke Skywalker, with one training session aboard the Millennium Falcon, a few weeks with Yoda, failing, getting whooped by Vader, a year later being able to beat the most powerful Jedi in saber combat, would that not, like he wouldn't have the training to face Vader, right?
Yeah.
He failed his training. He wouldn't have the skill to face him, and he has nowhere near the combat experience. So is Return of the Jedi one big Mary Sue moment?
I would argue no, but based on his definition here, it is. Now, I can already tell this is going straight to the Kylo Ren fight on Starkiller, but I can also tell just from your argument that you just presented that the goalpost is going to be ever shifting. So let's move on.
For example, if a fresh-faced farm boy who's never even seen a sword suddenly picks one up and without any kind of outside divine or supernatural aid defeats a war veteran of 15 years in single combat, you likely just witnessed a Mary Sue moment.
I also would like to ascribe that could happen, and it's not a Mary Sue moment. Like a farm boy who has never seen a gun shoots a veteran who has had years of training and years of experience because like the veteran stepped on a nail and got distracted. Like there's so many things, external factors to account for with fights, that something as simple or as something as reduced as this statement just doesn't help.
Also, I mean, I don't know if you can take it back like a second, but he says if they are able to do it without any supernatural, divine, or powered help, and you're like, that's what the Force is.
Let me see.
Kind of outside divine or supernatural aid defeats a war veteran of 15 years in single combat, you likely just witnessed a Mary Sue moment.
Okay.
So if they do have divine supernatural aid, then it's not a Mary Sue moment, which then
defeats.
Okay. This is dumb.
I mean,
the take is already brain dead.
Right. So like we're trying to be as charitable as possible watching this video, and I know a lot of people have watched this video as a kind of authority on the subject matter, but we are literally running into speed bumps here, trying to make heads or tails of simple statements such as these. So let's just keep going.
If a genius terrorist who has been shown to be brilliant enough to outsmart the good guys at every turn with meticulous skill, leaving no opening unguarded, and then the newbie field agent enters the scene and suddenly the genius terrorist begins to make silly, uncharacteristic mistakes, or his once hyper-competent underlings suddenly become incompetent for no explained reason, then you'd likely just witnessed a Mary Sue moment.
I mean, but
I'm sorry, that's Star Wars again. Like, that's what Palpatine is, literally that super genius who has outsmarted the heroes at every single turn, orchestrated the entire Clone Wars, and ends with him being casually picked up and yeeted down a shaft.
But I also want to like try to qualify this statement because it seems to hinge a lot on the audience or the person watching this material to infer something. Like the genius villain has to turn stupid, but at what moment do you infer that? And at what moment are you just assuming that, given like maybe they are being outsmarted, or maybe that they didn't account for something, or they planned all of this but didn't plan for this small little contingency. It always happens in storytelling, but a lot of people seem to think that because this happens, it's the genius turning stupid versus the genius not necessarily planning for everything that could possibly happen. You can't.
Yeah. No, that's true as well. Also, I don't know if you call it the genius turning stupid, but something that is a very, very common trope is like the villain getting the upper hand, getting the victory, and instead of just killing them, go into a speech, a monologue, savoring their moment because this was their goal. And in that pause to savor moment is when they lose track and lose. That's a super common trope.
Yes.
Just throughout media, all media. Is that them turning dumb? I don't know.
I mean, that's completely up to the audience member, but me personally, I've never thought that the genius has turned dumb. Although I would say that 9 times out of 10, I would be like, oh, that was kind of stupid of them to make that decision to reveal their plan, or to reveal like something that enables the protagonist to overcome this conflict, but like they never turn dumb. They always make like a bad decision, and that's always what it comes down to.
And again, I'm not like, I'm bringing up examples from Star Wars because this video was promising to prove something of the sequels versus the original trilogy. I love Luke. I love the original trilogy. I don't think any of them are Mary Sue's, actually. There's another trope that I think they both fall into a lot more, but we can get to that later.
I agree. I don't think either of them are Mary Sue's, but I think what we typically run into is people arguing for one over the other, and thus we have to make the argument, well, if you assume one is a Mary Sue, then you have to assume the other one is a Mary Sue based on criteria that fits both of them.
Unless you keep moving around your or keep a super subjective definition. But yeah.
If your everyman rookie pilot flies off to face down a squadron of elite enemy pilots infamous for their skill and wins easily for no adequately explained reason other than he's just awesome, you likely just witnessed a Mary Sue.
We'll probably get to the specifics of this argument, but there's a lot of intuitiveness in his language that is problematic just for the sake of epistemological arguments. For no adequate reason. The adequacy of a reason is strictly up to the person. So whether you find it to be an adequate reason is just, it's a really difficult hurdle to overcome.
Moment. In fact, if the only explanation you can find for a character's power is they're just awesome, then you're likely looking at a Mary Sue.
Well, you're looking at the two most prepared people to not say they're just awesome.
But this argument hinges on ignorance.
It really does, yeah.
If it's they are a Mary Sue as long as you don't know why they were able to do it. It doesn't mean that there is not a logical or common explanation. Doesn't mean that the film itself didn't fully explain it. It means that the person viewing it didn't see it, didn't grasp it, didn't understand it.
Now I can understand the argument here if the only explanation for power is they're just awesome and they're the ones doing it. I mean, yes, you could see that as Mary Sue, but that means you're ignoring everything that's being explained. You're ignoring other explanations, right? Just because, I forget the fallacy that states this, but just because that is the most likely explanation, it doesn't mean there isn't any other explanations. So
the reason why characters as powerful as Dream or as supposedly perfect as Superman are well liked and aren't usually considered Mary Sues is because the plot doesn't treat them as such.
I mean, come on now.
As a lifeless, blatant Mary Sue.
So this is the part where I stopped watching when I first saw this, because, take away all of like the problematic definitions and the shifting goalposts and stuff. When he said Rey equals lifeless, blatant Mary Sue, I immediately knew that he was biased and he was being disingenuous about trying to get to the truth of the matter, which it isn't. He's just trying to reach a certain truth that he wants you to believe.
Yeah, I mean, the way I've always done research is I always do whatever I can to prove my point, and then I do everything I can to disprove my point, like as if I'm an opposing attorney, and whichever one of those arguments that I make for myself wins. I feel like that's not what's happening here.
Force Awakens' rancid, shambling husk.
Yeah, I mean, already, like, just really quickly.
He's not biased at all.
Yeah.
A powerful hero.
I'm going to stop you here because already, like, this argument is archaic enough, but to fall on like centuries old monomyth is indicative of the fact that he's not familiar with the heroine's journey or just any other monomyths in general. Like, yes, of course it follows the hero's journey, but not just that.
And not only that, but Joseph Campbell, like, this is the amalgamation of all of all these different tales. It's not required for it to be the hero's journey for you to do 100% of these. It's actually not. Joseph Campbell didn't consider it good writing.
Yeah,
this is a base point. This is a measuring stick. So like, I could be wrong, but it feels like he's viewing adherence to the hero's journey as some sort of benefit or argument.
The heart of the original trilogy. I mean, the hero's journey isn't like a rubric for good writing, right? It's just, this is the framework. Let's see what you do with these, steps of the journey.
It's not even the only. It's not like it's the only framework.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay.
We're just gonna play it straight through all of this biased
Rey
stuff.
and Luke are both expected to begin their journey as relatively normal people, discounting legendary fathers, ancient prophecies, etc. So let's begin with character setup. Luke enters the story as a farm boy, a moisture farmer to be exact. Rey enters her story as a lone scavenger, a circumstance people have pointed out as an early deal breaker, an early Mary Sue moment.
Why? We'll let it play, but why? Why is the lone scavenger the deal breaker?
And those people have a point. But things aren't that simple. Rey surviving alone on a hostile planet wouldn't necessarily classify as a Mary Sue moment, and it wouldn't necessarily break the narrative either, even in a hero's journey formula. However, here's where the plot takes a wrong turn. Luke Skywalker is introduced with a particular set of skills such as general knowledge on droids, how to drive, and how to use weaponry. Now, how does he know these things? Believe it or not, the movie doesn't need to tell us directly. It is a movie after all. It can show us things, and we as the audience can make logical connections. So we can logically assume
I have a
Luke
bad feeling
was
about
taught these
this.
skills by his uncle Owen. And why would he do that? Because Luke is presented to us as an essential worker on Owen's farm. I need you here, Luke.
There's so
from
much
what the audience is
charitability
given,
going
we can
on for
reasonably
the New
conclude
Hope.
that the skills Luke has come from growing up on a farm residing on a hostile planet. Rey doesn't have anything for the audience to connect with. Instead,
I know we just want to play it through, but I'm just curious, because he just said like there are things that we can logically assume because of the character, like Luke is a farm boy, all the stuff that he would know is weaponry and these things. He was taught by Uncle Owen, and I'm just curious if he's going to say that the same thing is going to apply to Rey, because as a scavenger who is taking parts on ships and selling them, then she would have to know what parts are, if they are valuable. The fact that she survived this long means that has gone well. The fact that we see her fight people in the movie means that she knows how to fight and how to take care of herself. I'm curious if he's going to say, the same things, because,
I'm sure we'll get there. Also, just at the start of this, nothing for the audience to connect with. I mean, solitude is a lot to connect with. But let's move on.
the movie decides to focus on how alone she is, which we could have already gathered when she was introduced, as a lone scavenger, collecting things to bring back to an old abandoned AT-AT. In fact, you could say that she's almost like a human version of Pixar's WALL-E, without the humanity. This might be a general problem with the film, but the focus on how alone and lonely she is seemed to cause quite a few missed opportunities that could have given us more detail about Rey's character, that is, if she had one. WALL-E liked to collect them.
He keeps on making these these quips, like, stop showing your card before you've even done the video.
You can see how much he cares. When he puts that lid on his head, we get a clearer sense of his desired connection to humanity.
I mean, I'm gonna stop it right here because he's touching on a lot of things, and I don't want to go too far ahead, but there's a lot of things that is essential to Rey's character in those first few moments in the movie, including writing the tallies on the wall, the X-Wing pilot doll, the food that she's using to eat, and there's a lot of things that you could point to that is indicative of her world, including the helmet that she puts on that, it's just a lot of these things.
He keeps naming things that are one for one what Rey does.
Exactly.
And it's funny because obviously everything inside of her overturned AT-AT is something that she found and decided not to try and sell, but it connected with her, and so she collected it. So by looking around the AT-AT, then you get a sense of who she is and what she values.
by mimicking human behavior. In contrast, Rey's house gives us two sentimental items, a wilting flower and a doll. She doesn't interact with either. So
you don't need to.
I mean, she likely made the doll. Yeah, why does she need to interact with them? The fact that she has them and has kept them, is an adult with a doll. That's something sentimental.
Also, like, everything in there is sentimental to her. Like, just inferring it, like, not knowing the rest of the story, like, you would think that everything she has in there is important to her. So why do you point to just two? Those are the ones you paid attention to, right?
So we don't get any additional information other than she's lonely, which has already been established. These items could have served the plot better if they were symbols of Rey's parents. This is a...
How do you know they're not? I'm being very, very charitable right now. Like, I'm not using information from Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, the novelizations. I'm literally being so charitable. I'm going off of The Force Awakens and this scene. As an audience member, how do you know that is not symbols of her parents? Anything? Can you know?
It's so fundamentally flawed. The mindset already, that it's hard to think of things.
While Rey can scavenge and survive alone on the desert home planet because she's just awesome.
No.
So she doesn't die.
Exactly. I feel like the point of showing you that she's alone is that she has managed to survive despite being alone. I think I stopped it here last time because this was the moment that he showed his cards completely. Like, Luke's circumstances can be explained. His uncles are, his uncle is a farmer and he teaches him farming and survival skills. Rey can survive alone because she's just awesome. Like, no, if you, like, in a dire circumstance were on your own and you had managed to survive, it would be a testament to your resilience and your ingenuity. You wouldn't like survive out there in the real world and come out and be like, I'm just awesome. Like, no.
I wonder how he watches other movies. Like, if you watch Mad Max and you're like, all these people are just awesome.
Yeah.
Because they've survived. I don't know. It's weird.
Hinting to a scavenger parent, or at least a scavenger mentor, and would therefore give the audience a satisfying conclusion as to how Rey got these skills.
So we do have the scavenger mentor.
Yeah, he's just a dick.
Yes.
We see her left in the care of Unkar Plutt. Is not going to be a very forgiving person, but he runs the outpost and he took her in. She's on her own. So, is it not the same logical inference?
Yes, it is. It's almost as if like she is valuable to him as property. So he would, it would make sense that he would do his best to make sure she knows at least enough to take care of herself. He makes an argument for like showing us things that would indicate how she survived or her capability to survive, but we see her environment. It's, she is alone, but she has other people at the outpost. Unkar Plutt, she's not completely alone. She's just a lone scavenger. And so when she's surrounded by all of these people in the movie, you kind of have to infer that, hey, she's like learning from other cultures, learning from other aliens and residents of the outpost. She's learning from Unkar Plutt to scavenge because she has to know the value of the items to get her rations. You're either choosing to ignore all of these setups in favor of she's just awesome, or just being really disingenuous.
Yeah, it's bad.
We got nothing.
We got everything.
And this leaves her defenders to argue that Rey has survived all alone because, you guessed it, she's just awesome.
Well, that's not what we said at all.
Though it's probably been repackaged as some combination of Rey being strong, independent, brave, etc. But even if you can accept that explanation and are willing to wave off her unexplained skills, that's fine, because this Mary Sue moment alone doesn't mark Rey as a Mary Sue.
Well, first of all, her skills are just as unexplained as Luke's. The fact that you can infer that his uncle was the one that taught him and no one else could teach Rey is what's problematic, because Yeah, it's reasonable to assume that his uncle taught him what he knows. It's also reasonable to assume that Unkar Plutt and everyone else at the outpost, even Tito, people who she runs into often, can teach her.
I mean, that being said, using his definition for Mary Sue, we have point one. If the only reason she survives is because she's just awesome, that's a Mary Sue moment. So this is definitely not a Mary Sue moment. She didn't survive because she was just awesome. She survived because she was left in the care of Unkar Plutt. Unkar Plutt runs Nema Outpost, and he needs workers to scrap things and bring them to him so he can continue to run the business. The logical inference being that she was taught enough to survive on her own in order to help him grow his business. But he doesn't actually care about her, and so she has to survive alone.
Yeah.
So the explanation is pretty clear. Now that we have his definition, we can definitively say that this is not a Mary Sue moment.
I guess the video is over. I'm just kidding.
But he said there might be more. So let's keep going. Let's see if there are Mary Sue moments.
Gotcha.
Whiny behavior isn't just typical teenage angst.
I'd like to also point out the obvious charitability going on with using subtitles and captions from A New Hope. And then when we get to Rey in The Force Awakens, we get nothing. There's nothing to explain anything. There's no dialogue.
Doesn't
we
use
get
any
nothing.
dialogue. That's funny.
The problem is exponentially growing every minute that passes by in this video. The attention and care for characters' analysis, or for Luke's analysis, is astronomical. But when it comes to Rey, just show two pictures and be like, we got nothing.
That's the kind of humorous part, because A New Hope, which I love, by the way, it's a plot-driven story. The Force Awakens is a character-driven story. Mm-hmm. There's you find out more about the characters in The Force Awakens than you do in A New Hope. So it's kind of funny that he's able to squeeze water from a stone.
But he would be able to. I mean, it's a decades old film. You watch it like over 100 times, you can glean new things each time. It's okay.
True.
It's just not, he's not affording it to Rey, which is the problem.
And that's what I'm calling out to be the whole thing, is he doesn't like the movie, and therefore he pays less attention to it, so things are less obvious.
The only thing we got from Rey was her desire to stay on her backwater planet and wait for her parents to return. And at this point, one might say she's motivated to help the Resistance. But we can see that while she has heard...
Why would we say that she was motivated to help the Resistance?
I have no idea. But let's just keep going. Because...
the Resistance. Just like Luke had heard of the rebellion, we're never given a reason to think she really cares. Because, unlike Luke, Rey isn't determined to leave.
Well, then he just went on to answer that question, right? You'd think that Rey was motivated to help No, because she didn't want to leave. That's it. That's the answer.
So the problem is, and this kind of goes back to the hero's journey, is like, Luke is someone that was yearning for adventure. And so when the opportunity strikes, he runs off to do it. In this case, every person in The Force Awakens is the exact opposite of the characters in A New Hope. Rey being, obviously, she does not want to go off. And so she has to get dragged along on this adventure because essentially her cover is blown. Like, she looks like a sympathizer, and they're gonna kill her if she stays, but she ultimately wants to go back. That's the point.
Yeah.
It seems forced. Now, that isn't to say she needs to be a wild-eyed adventurer.
It was forced.
Yes. They forced her.
Like he grabbed her hand and started running.
I mean, extenuating circumstances, the First Order started firing on Nema Outpost, and they just had to leave. But she did want to come back.
I guess he's right, but says it as if it's a problem.
Yeah.
Or something. I don't know.
And instead manifests itself just when the plot demanded it. A trait I'll get into in a moment. Now let's look back at Rey's more human...
The suspense is killing me.
I mean... Okay.
Counterpart, WALL-E. The creators of WALL-E used his interaction with certain items, personality...
Hold on, I do want to go back to that. Hold on. Just really quickly.
something or someone pulls her into an adventure. This is what seems to happen, but actually, she ends up choosing to go on the adventure. Why? Because of one defining...
Why? Because, as we said, the outpost was under fire. Finn, BB-8, the elements were there that when they were forced to flee, their only option was to move forward. Nothing else.
Why are they shooting at us?
Yeah.
Is dialogue. He has all the dialogue printed out somewhere of A New Hope. But if you look at the dialogue of this movie, it actually tells you why they were forced to begin this adventure. However, this adventure has many, many checks where she's trying to go home.
Right. All right, let's go.
Every instance of her being portrayed as lonely is done to do just that. Tell us she's alone. Did I mention Ray had?
No. It tells us that she's alone, but it tells us that she wants something. She's craving something, right? She wants her family to come back. She wants to be part of a family. That's what she's craving.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that in and of itself tells us more than just she's alone.
Leave the droid where she found it, which again feels off. Rey not only saves the droid, but speaks to...
I don't know why it feels off. She doesn't know who that droid is, who owns it. Obviously, she didn't want Tito to mess around with it, but what does she owe it? We still don't know her at this point enough to kind of expect her to have a level of hospitality towards BB-8. We, of course, want her to take it at this point.
It would actually have the opposite effect if she saw it and was like, oh, now that's my new best friend. And you'd be like, what? That's strange. No, she sees a fully functioning droid, being taken, and has respect for the droid's autonomy and defends it, and then starts to walk off, but then notices its antenna was bent. Comes back over and fixes it, and then starts to walk off. And then it reaches out to her, and she's like, okay, so you don't get lost or eaten. Stay away from these places, but this is where you need to go.
Yeah.
And then it asks her more. Basically, she's been hardened by living in this place, but she does care, but she has to keep that down, and the droid keeps asking. So
I think it does more for her character for doing it, because not a lot of characters have respect for autonomy, and they would just take that droid the same way Tito would have. But she just rescues it. It sees that it's fully functioning and can operate on its own. It also says a lot about her principles as a scavenger. It's working, it's functioning. You don't scavenge that, right? That's more along the lines of being a thief.
And on top of that, that's one of the biggest messages that I take away from Star Wars, or at least always have, is the Empire's downfall is they don't look at the weak and downtrodden as someone that could potentially oppose them. And that's how they lose every single time.
Leon from The Professional was a lone assassin and still decided to save Matilda's life, make her laugh, and letting her sleep over before almost killing her / kicking her out. Frank Martin from The Transporter was considered enough to give a kidnapped girl something to drink before turning her over to her kidnappers. Even
Also,
Han Solo,
highly
the
problematic
iconic bad boy, left...
Let's point to the problems. They're just not the same situation. BB-8's not in trouble. Tito is just trying to scavenge him, catches him in the net. Rey, lectures Tito, and then she sees that BB-8 is trying to do something, trying to accomplish a mission.
Also, in The Professional, he's reluctant to take her in. It is more similar. It's not like, hey, you want to be my buddy?
Yeah.
But that example is highly problematic because, they were written to have a relationship, and it's a whole.
Yeah, I forgot about that part.
so I mean, there's other extenuating circumstances, motives, or whatnot. Actually, that's what happened in The Transporter too. He just, All right, let's keep going.
The bar keeps some money after he shot Greedo. Rey could have offered BB-8 some assistance so it wouldn't be taken by the scavengers again, but she walks away.
She did offer directions, I mean...
She absolutely offered assistance.
Like,
he defended him, scared off the person, fixed his antenna, and then told him where to go and how to avoid more trouble.
right. And I don't know if he's gonna get to it, but if he does, then I'll take this back. But BB-8 follows her, and when she realizes that it needs help, then she assists it.
And her going from this to actually assisting happens in like 1 minute. So
Right.
like his problem is she doesn't help him fast enough.
Like, I believe she says once,
Really?
why are you following me, or don't follow me? And then she's like, okay, you can come along. That's the problem right there, folks. That's a Mary Sue moment, I guess. Or I don't know if he called it a Mary Sue moment, but
I don't think he watched the movie while making the video.
that would be an interesting thing to find out.
With the scavenger she just saved it from still in view, you'd think someone kind-hearted would be a little kinder. So why did she get involved?
Okay, so he didn't get to that part. Okay, so you completely missed her actually helping BB-8.
Oh, who knows? Maybe she read the script. Or maybe she's just awesome.
Well, first,
Where does just being awesome apply
I
in this
don't know.
context?
Focused so much on showing her being a strong, independent woman, they forgot.
So I feel like
also we kind of skipped over her using the stuff as a sled and kind of smiling as she was sliding down the hill. She had a smile on her face while she's like eating food in her pilot's helmet. Just those little things characterized her, at least to me, as someone who was not happy but joyous, could find joy in
at least
things.
content,
Not hardened and angry and hard-edged. It set her up as having to survive, but a big softie, which this continued over.
I also like the very kind of the way he portrays strong, independent women.
Oh, that's all he wants to say. I mean,
Mhm.
his own comic is based off of Tyler Durden.
I mean, listen,
I'm sorry.
strong, independent woman is a single thought. It's not three separate words. So when he presents it as three separate words, he's like, oh, they're trying to show you a strong, an independent, and a woman, like, no, a strong, independent woman that can exist. Just saying, there's no problem with it.
And then also, Han Solo was characterized as a strong, independent man.
To add meaning, they almost had
With the meaning at the X, got it.
it too. Remember this flower? Had it looked cared for? And had we seen Rey care for it like Leon cared for his plant? A symbol of life and care amidst a harsh desert planet.
Well, I'd say
He's
that
in the
it's
desert.
yes. I'd say it being wilted and her not having rations or having to scrounge for rations. I mean, you see her cook
I'd
her
eat
bread.
that flower.
Yeah, you see her cook that portion bread in water. So you'd assume, or at least infer, that water is a very precious resource on desert planets, and they are. That's why they have moisture farmers.
Instead, we got nothing, which again sets
I get it. I mean, I'm not gonna take this further. We got a lot of things, and the more he reiterates we got nothing, the more he exposes that he's got nothing.
us up for another moment of she's just awesome.
Which I will also reiterate. No one has said that.
It was not a thirst for adventure, or even an event that forced her hand like
Yes, it was an event that forces her hand. Why would you list those things and cross out both? First of all, Rey's motivation isn't really a concern at this very first movie. We're just trying to figure out who she is and what she wants. I mean, what she wants could be a motivation, but like a motivation for acting in the moment, sure. But we don't have her motivation for, what's going to occur for the rest of the trilogies, but just for The Force Awakens.
Gandalf did with Bilbo. What motivates Rey to begin her quest, her main identifiable trait, is liking BB-8.
No.
Wanting family and connection.
I will say Rey's motivation isn't the event that forces her hand, but an event that forces her hand is what causes her to leave the planet to begin with. Her motivation isn't liking BB-8. Her motivation is wanting to help BB-8, which is something you clamored for just 2 minutes ago.
I think she should have been kind to the droid, and now she's kind to the droid, and I don't know why.
It's not clear because, again, we're given nothing.
You don't need to be given anything. She's waiting for her parents. She was dropped off and she's been alone for how many years? You'd think it's probably because this is all she knows, and she's waiting for them. That's it. What is this like cake, love, and hate?
I don't know, but it feels like an indie band name.
No story about her father being a great warrior, or fond recollections of her mother telling her stories about the Jedi. Nothing.
We don't need any of that.
And remember, she was going to abandon BB-8 until the droid begged to go with her.
No. She wasn't going to abandon BB-8. She was going to let BB-8 go on their way. When you abandon something, you are in care of it.
You are responsible of it.
And then you go off, you drop it somewhere and leave. That's abandoning. When you like run into something out in the world and they need help, then you help them and then you go on your way. That's not abandoning them. Just wanted to clarify and clear that up because this video is getting really, really tiring.
So it's a little jarring when the next minute she's beating up men twice her size and tackling Finn like he ate the last French fry. When this character switch happens, there's usually an event that endears defendee to defender.
Right.
When Matilda proved her strength by shooting a gun out the window, after which Leon decided to train her. Or when Luke proved himself to Han over the course of an adventure, after which Han flew in to save Luke during the Death Star run.
Hold on, over the course of an adventure? You mean the trip to Alderaan? Was that the course of that adventure? Please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sorry, I stopped this video early, so now I'm getting into the weeds of this and just...
No, it's bad. It's bad. I feel strongly that you didn't watch either movie before making this video, and he's just running off of memory and like not remembering the order in which things happen or the length of time for things happening, or maybe he's just using his memory of the entire original trilogy. But if you're comparing movie for movie, then this doesn't make sense at all.
We don't get any such thing with Rey or BB-8.
So he's positing here that we don't get anything to hint at the character switch. Finn telling her that he's with the Resistance. BB-8 almost being stolen by those Marauders. These are all events that mark a character switch. Not a very big one, but it lends to her jumping to action to save BB-8. And to fight off the Marauders wanting to kidnap BB-8.
Also, the event that endears, that causes the endearance is her being offered a bunch of portions to betray BB-8 and choosing not to. So first, this was a helpless thing that was being, kidnapped, and she fights to free it and then starts to leave. Yeah. And then she sees something's broken on it, so she fixes it. And then she offers him advice. At this point, she's not responsible. She has her own stuff. She's here waiting for her family. She does not want to be swept off into some adventure. She wants to remain here and wait for her family until it asks to be taken. And so she does. And in the process, she has the opportunity to betray it and decides not to. And at that point, they are now endeared.
At this point, folks, you can tell that there's a certain level of bad faith going on with this video, particularly with the amount of times he has provided so much charitability to Luke. And it's always with Rey. We don't get anything. We got nothing. There's no explanation. She's just awesome. But we've been giving you guys all of the explanations in the world, and we haven't pointed to a source that's outside of the movie to later movies. This is all comprehension if you watch the movies.
Rey just decides to adopt BB-8 like a new dog from one scene to the next for no reason other than she's suddenly, i.e. without being previously established, just that noble.
No, we already explained why she went from walking away to being with BB-8. We already did that.
Or just that awesome.
No, that wasn't just a Mary Sue.
Again, it could have been an easy setup. Remember when Rey was polishing those scraps and she spotted the old lady doing the same exact thing? She could have offered to help, sacrificing her own time for no expected reward, but she didn't. Instead, they used that scene to further indulge into telling us how hard Rey's life is. And the same...
Well, at least he was correct on that front.
Well,
I mean, just the whole how hard this life is, like, this is...
That's true. That's true. But like that scene, just because it didn't signify her being nice to people while trying to survive, signified her future that she had to look forward to if she doesn't leave this place. And the life that she's committing to. That's what it was there to symbolize. That would have been her. That's why the character even looks similar. That would have been her if she never left Jakku.
Yeah, the old woman didn't need help. Anyways.
Can go for her sudden ability to fight off two thugs. But she's a woman living on her own. Of course she would know how to fight.
Well, I hate to agree with this guy, but I do agree with this guy. She survived for 15 years on her own with other scavengers, marauders. It's a reasonable inference. I don't get it.
Belches some gargantuan grotesque. Again, there was no setup. And again, this could have and should have been done during the introduction.
This is the setup. This is the introduction.
Yes, this is, yeah, exactly. I was going to say that.
This is the introduction. This should have been done during the... But when? Before the introduction?
I feel like...
Did you want like a book before the movie came out? Because they also did that.
I feel like a lot of people nowadays has to update their Act 1. Because movies have gone from like an hour and a half to 2.5 hours to almost 3 hours, where you're like, the Act 1 can be very, very long. And this is certainly still in the introduction. This is still Act 1. You know, she's still on Jakku. So her circumstances, her living standards, her what she does on the daily, these are all being set up. These are all the setup. You just got nothing from it. Well, we got everything.
Maybe instead of the several scenes of her eating and making food, as if this were a college life documentary, we could have gotten a shot of her practicing, just a small segment of her going through the motions. But instead, we have nothing. So when we see her suddenly able to beat up some thugs with almost no problem, these skills just seem to manifest, and the only explanation we're left with is that she's just awesome.
No.
Narratively speaking, if the goal is to run Rey through a hero's journey, it would be better if she could defend herself but not be able to actually defeat them. It would show weakness, vulnerability. In other words, it would show her potential but also leave room to grow.
First of all, as we said, this is to set up that she has fighting ability. That at 19 years old, 14, 15 years in the desert scavenging, it's a reasonable inference that she knows how to take care of herself and to fight other scavengers and other marauders. We don't need to see Rey lose this fight.
I feel like like if this guy watched a sitcom or like a rom-com or something like that, the person would like be like, okay, I'll meet you, and they'll hop in their car and he'll be like, well, how do we know this person knows how to drive? We needed a scene of them getting their driver's license so that we can infer that they are able to drive as an adult. And you're like, but no, this isn't this isn't even like, we haven't even gotten to the point yet.
The one last thing that I want to comment on this particular frame: show weakness. Her weakness is her attachment to her parents. Her vulnerability is that she is alone and she doesn't want to open up to anybody. She's got loads of potential and room for growth because this is the first movie in the first 20 minutes. I hate to raise my voice, but these bullet points.
Yeah, no, it's bad.
But their respective piloting skills alone aren't the main point here. Luke's piloting skills are a much larger point than one might initially think. But first, let's go to one of the biggest...
Did he just say that their piloting skills is not the point here? But Luke's piloting skills becomes a point here. Did he just say that?
Let me replay, and then I'm pretty sure he did.
Hindrance, but their respective piloting skills alone aren't the main point here. Luke's piloting skills are a much larger point than one might initially think.
I'm trying to kind of parse this train of thought. Piloting skills, not a point, got it. But their piloting skills is a greater point. Like, okay, let's just go. Let's just.
But first, let's go to one of the biggest grievances often referred to by the Star Wars faithful, Rey fixing the Millennium Falcon better than Han Solo, its former owner.
Okay.
The usual defense for this is that Rey is a scavenger and lives alone, and can therefore fix things like a trained mechanic. But we don't know this for sure, because again, this skill was never hinted at. After all, there's a big difference between breaking
I will
things and
let him
fixing
finish
them.
this
For
point, and then
example,
we'll
even
go in.
someone without technical skill jump for something they can trade for cigarette money is also
we'll,
therefore a
go through all
top-notch
of this.
mechanic. And once more, the movie had the perfect opportunity for a setup and missed it entirely. All they had to do was introduce Rey as a scavenger in the morning and an employee at a local mechanic shop in the evening.
Okay. Well, let's let him finish the bullet points and go for it.
Kind of like how Rocky Balboa was a boxer and part-time mob enforcer.
Okay, so those are the bullet points. First and foremost,
Wrong.
First of all, they did set it up. She is a scavenger in the morning and a mechanic in the evening. That's what she did. Like, that's what she's doing to the parts. Like, she's preparing them to be sold. She obviously knows what those parts do, what they're worth, and she was scavenging in the morning. So I don't understand.
Also, so he used a graphic of someone like pulling trash out of a trash can or whatever, but like it's so disingenuous because there's a difference between someone who is going around collecting cans versus someone who is going to a pick and pull to remove specific pieces of a vehicle that they know is valuable. Yes, that shows mechanical skill. That's part of how I learned how I learned a mechanical skill.
Yeah.
I literally took parts of my car apart, and by doing so, I understood how it worked, how to assemble it, figured out what part was broken, was able to go to a pick and pull, find this. Had a Civic, so there's 1,000 of them, a pick and pull. Bring proper tools, because without doing that, you would break the piece and it would become useless. Disassemble what I need, take the parts, and then put it back together without formal training. Why? Because I took it apart.
Yeah. He also makes a point to kind of like rope you in with this kind of language, saying that she fixed the Millennium Falcon better than Han Solo. I don't know if he goes into more of the details surrounding that, but I'll just get it out of the way. There's a lot of dialogue in the movie. The most important one being Unkar Plutt installed a compressor. That is reason enough to assume she knows what Unkar Plutt has done to the Falcon. Han does not. It has not been in his possession. Another piece of dialogue. She stole it from Unkar Plutt, who stole it from the Irving boys, who stole it from Duquesne. It's gone through so many owners, so far removed from Han, that of course Han doesn't know how to fix anything new that has been added to the Falcon. And if Rey was with Unkar Plutt, who installed the compressor, she would know how to bypass it. Not better than Han, only because she knows about it.
If I went to your car and I popped the hood and I took a piece out, and then you came out and your car didn't start, and you're like, I don't know what's going on. And I found someone, I don't know, my wife or whatever. And I was like, hey, I removed this part from this car. And she's like, hey, I have this part. It was removed from your car. Does that mean she knows how to fix it better than you do? Or does it mean that she's just aware of the thing that happened that you were unaware of? I don't it seems very basic. This is very basic.
It is
but
basic.
Also, there's a pretty large plot point of Han having trouble fixing the Millennium Falcon throughout the films as well. That's just on top of all of this stuff. But in the grand scheme of things, he's wrong. But even isolated, he's still wrong.
You pointed it out. Han not knowing how to fix the Falcon is just a running gag at this point. But it apparently, in the face of a woman, it's just him being stupid. I don't know where they're getting this stuff from.
Instead, it became another instance of she's just awesome.
No.
Then we go back to the scene where Finn rushes in to help Rey fight off her attackers only to arrive too late because she had already defeated them. We logically concluded that when going against someone presumably self-taught like Rey, Finn should still be able to overpower her.
Unless, of course, she knew the terrain, knew he was coming, beat him to where he was going to turn a corner, and sucker punched him.
Right, which is what happened. I was waiting for him to make a point, but he just arrived and I was like, whoa. First of all, like the logic wasn't going there, but then now that you're there, I'm like, this is dumb.
Yeah.
Powered immediately. I guess he had one hell of a
He also wasn't overpowered immediately. He was, as you said, sucker punched, and then he was like, oh, what just happened? And then she has him down on the floor, and she's got the position over him. He's not trying to fight her.
That's another great point. Also, he's been wandering through the desert for how long? And like he walks out of a plane crash and then wanders through the desert. Finally gets like his first drink of water, drinking next to that big hapabore.
Oh my goodness!
And even like in his state, he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna rescue her," and yeah, she just beats him to the corner and hits him. I know there's so many things. Things.
This wasn't a fight. If you count this as Rey beating Finn, I don't know what to do with you.
Doctor's note. Now let's go to Han Solo. The first time she meets Han, he's getting confronted by two gangs. She eventually saves them all, only for Han to pilot the Millennium Falcon, which Rey has already been shown to be quite capable of doing herself. The only piece of help Han actually does offer is his connection to Maz, which they can use to smuggle BB-8 to the Resistance. So why did I mention all that? Allow me to summarize. Rey saves BB-8, saves herself and Finn from the First Order, saves Finn during Han Solo's fiasco, and saves Han Solo from his own idiocy.
So that's a very reductionist view of what actually happened in the movie.
It's not reductionist, it's wrong.
Yeah. I mean, but like you're reducing it to Rey does this, Rey does that, Rey does this, it's like, no, there's other things that happened in those scenes that clearly wasn't just Rey, so I mean, Finn and Rey worked together in that flight scene. Finn was shooting, Finn was telling her how to fight these TIE fighters. And then she was just maneuvering. She was going through terrain that she knew. She knew that Star Destroyer very well, and that was her part in that scene. Rey was not doing everything.
Yeah. I mean, Finn shot down both of the TIE fighters.
Yes.
And they survived because of his advice. So she did a good job piloting once she took off and stopped crashing and hitting stuff. Okay, so but that's point one. Point two is the two gangs show up. Rey caused the trouble.
Yes, she caused the trouble, but also the trouble was the solution. Like, she didn't solve the chaos, right? It was just taking advantage of that said chaos that was caused.
Created more chaos,
right?
And on accident. Yeah.
So if you see that scene in the movie and think that's Rey being a Mary Sue, I don't know what's going on with you. Introspect, please.
It would have been a Mary Sue moment if she perfectly knew exactly, okay, this is how I'm just going to close these doors or whatever. But she didn't. She made a mistake and then released giant monsters that started eating everyone.
Yeah. Pretty much. Or if she had luckily found a lightsaber somewhere and started slicing the what is it called? The Wrath Tar. Just started slicing it and defeating it. That would have been a Mary Sue moment. Where'd she get the lightsaber? But that didn't happen, so.
Being a man who has spent decades as an outlaw, having suddenly gotten himself tangled up with two gangs, it's almost like a bad sitcom. Rey shows up and suddenly Han Solo is an idiot. Rey shows up and suddenly Han Solo is an idiot.
No, he's not. This is how Han always was. He's always skated by the skin of his teeth or whatever that phrase is. He's always, on the edge.
That's how we meet him. That's literally how we meet him.
And I don't know if you're asserting that he is an idiot because of Rey bypassing the compressor. We've already explained how she knows about it and the dialogue that leads to you knowing Han Solo isn't familiar with the Falcon and what's been done to it for the past at least 10 years. So he's not an idiot.
Not to mention Rey saving Finn during the Kylo Ren encounter. Rey is already awesome. She's the one doing all the saving. Where's the room for growth?
If it wasn't for his friends, he wouldn't have survived. I'm trying to like kind of parse that out. There is the moment where Leia shoots, the hole and they dive in there and go to the trash compactor.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, he seemed pretty capable, especially for a farm boy against soldiers.
That's true. Or are we like kind of like narrowing it down to the trench run or like the space battle around the Death Star? Han had to save him or something like that.
Maybe that's specifically what he's referring to, but it just feels like you have a farmer who's like, I know this is like a ragtag rebellion, but y'all got an extra X-wing. I've never flown one, but I would like to. I like to think I'm pretty good. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. It's hard to talk about specifics when his statements are so abstract.
In fact, had it not been for Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke probably would have died after the Sand People attacked. Afterward, it was Han Solo who took charge when trying to escape the Empire. But Rey, of course, saves him because she knows exactly how to operate devices and controls on a ship she's never been on before. Because she's just awesome.
Wait, I was going to say, not because she's just awesome, but because she tried to do that before and did the wrong thing and released the monsters.
It's called trial and error, right? Is that what we're hinting at? I don't understand how like a mistake can be canceled out by that very mistake leading to a better situation. She still made the mistake. Why would you erase that mistake? She made the mistake and then she's trying to fix it. Here, this is like a non-issue.
But what does this all have to do with Luke's piloting skills? Rey is introduced with unexplained expert fighting skills, technical skills, and magical expert level piloting skills.
Wait, why does he give her?
Why is it? Yeah, that's my same question. Why is her side hyperbolic and his just piloting? Not to mention he blew up the Death Star, but she's got expert fighting skills for fighting off thugs or marauders or what have you, like working under Unkar Plutt. Technical skills, we can infer that from her being a scavenger and, working with Unkar Plutt. Magic piloting skills. First of all, she said she was a pilot. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, not even 4. She said it 5 times in the movie. And she's force sensitive.
It also...
Right. Wouldn't that make it magic piloting skills?
Think of the people we've seen fly the Falcon, right? We've seen Luke pilot it through an asteroid field, expertly being chased, which is crazy. Also we have Solo as well, which is an even more impressive feat. We have Lando flying it through the second Death Star, which in my opinion is the greatest feat. We have Chewbacca flying it through the crystalline structure of Crate. Rey is the worst pilot we've ever seen fly the Falcon.
She is, objectively speaking, like just
objectively she's the worst. And if we compare her to the 3 protagonists between Luke, Anakin, and Rey, she's also the worst. She also
hasn't flown as much.
Yeah, no, and there's reasons for her not to be as good. It's just weird that it's magic. That she's only flown in atmosphere, right? I mean, so she flies a ship she's familiar with to a location she's familiar with, crashing several times along the way, skimming the sides along the way, and only survives because of knowledge given to her by Finn, who has an intimate knowledge of the enemy, and shoots down the first one, and then because of their maneuvering, it shoots down the next one. Luke, who has never flown an X-wing before, has never flown in space before. Like, imagine like being a really good go-kart racer, and then you're given a Ferrari on ice.
Now I have to reiterate to you guys, we're using just the movies here, right? So the only kind of help that we get from the movie is I'm a pilot. Sure, I'm a pilot, and then his friend saying Luke's the best bush pilot, which just means terrestrial flight. So yeah,
I'm not a bad pilot. Yeah.
It's all the same. The reason,
but Luke is magic. It has magical piloting skills.
Yeah, the reason I point out that, well, the reason I want to point out how much she's flied, and we're just gonna, like, again, in keeping with being charitable with the video, this is just The Force Awakens. If you think that her escaping Jakku with the help of Finn is suddenly like making her an expert pilot, where Han Solo is flying the rest of the way in the film, and then Rey just flies off to find Luke, like, why is this even a point? The movie doesn't make it a point to reinforce her piloting skills. She pilots when they need to escape. Han Solo flies, and then that's it. She flies to find Luke. Like, there is no other special flight attached to Rey. You know who's flying the best throughout the trilogies, even though this is just The Force Awakens? Like, outside of this point that I'm making, Poe is the one doing all of the crazy flight stuff, because he's their ace pilot. But in The Force Awakens, this is a moot point. She flies to escape, and that's it. There's no other like feats that require her to even explain further if she's a pilot or if she has training.
Flying his T-16, and Bull's eyeing Womp Rats, letting us know what kind of practice he's had. Luke spent the whole first movie mostly being a burden. By this time, the
So first of all, as an audience goer, we have no idea what a T-16 is.
movie's events had hardened Luke, changed him.
We also don't know what a Womp Rat is.
Now more experienced, no longer the farm boy from Tatooine. This results in Luke finally having his big hero moment when he became
still the farm boy.
To destroy the Death Star. But even then, it wasn't just Luke's piloting skills that allowed him to save the day. It was the Force. Luke trusted his instincts and used the Force to help guide his hand, letting him know when to fire. And he was only able to do so after having the assistance from a mentor. This moment in mind, I'll be coming back to it soon. The first time Rey encounters the Force is when Luke Skywalker's lightsaber happens to be in Maz's bar, for some reason. So Legendary's sword just so happens to be in a bar where they're just going to get help smuggling BB-8 to the Resistance. There was no logical reason for the audience to even suppose that such an item would be there.
There's also no logical reason for the audience to not suppose it's there.
And not only a legendary weapon sitting in some back room of a cantina, but it also calls out to Rey, making up new Force rules in the process.
There is no new Force rules in the process. Okay.
Yeah, I should watch the Clone Wars. I mean, Kyber crystals call out to people if they want a new owner or have an affinity for someone. I mean, we have Ahsoka getting her white crystals because they called out to her from across the galaxy, even though they were already being wielded by someone else. Watch The Gathering.
Ezra found Kanan's lightsaber because it called out to him. The Force wants to talk to these people. There are, like, when someone like refers to the rules of the Force, that just completely defeats the purpose of the Force, because the Force is in and of itself a Deus Ex Machina. You cannot ascribe your own rules to this place. Just like the comment that I get about the rules of hyperspace. Where are these the 10 commandments of the hyperspace rules?
Well, it's inductive reasoning versus deductive reasoning. If someone in what they have seen, they've never witnessed this before, they think anything beyond what they've witnessed is impossible, which is not true. The first time we watch Empire Strikes Back, we see Luke use Force telekinesis. Where did he learn that?
Yeah.
Did he see Obi-Wan do it? I didn't see him see Obi-Wan do it. Did he just in the moment figure it out? But it's such a basic Force ability that we all accept now, but it was something new when it was added. And just because it's new doesn't mean it's
impossible.
Not a thing. But more than that, what we saw with Rey isn't new. We saw it in the Clone Wars before Disney purchased Star Wars. So
it's just, the moment you've come to the conclusion that something is impossible with the Force, you're mistaken already. That's when you need to end your argument and reflect, because Nothing is
Luke.
impossible with the Force.
That's Luke in Empire Strikes Back. For you,
Right.
it'd be impossible. You know, I don't believe it.
And that is why you fail. But you're absolutely right bringing that up, because everything we learned about the Force from 4, 5, and 6 were all first times witnessing it, and nobody's like, that's impossible. Like, come on now. As I said, the moment you say that's impossible, that's the moment you've lost, because there are no rules with the Force. It just exists.
There are things that we've seen before. There are things that we glean based off of what we see. But if you find something new, it doesn't mean the new thing is wrong. It means you have to update your information, your pool of information.
I see. The dictionary updated every year. Nobody's going around policing language and saying that's not a word. The dictionaries are updated, just like information, history. Okay, let's go.
But even if inanimate objects could use the Force, why wouldn't it call out to Han, who had a much...
So it's an inanimate, semi-sentient inside the lightsaber. Just wanted to clarify that.
stronger connection to Luke? I guess it pays to be the DM's girlfriend.
And that's not being uncharitable either, because that was information that was gleaned from the Clone Wars, right? Before The Force Awakens.
Also, his point is, why didn't the lightsaber call out to Han? What, was Han Force sensitive? Or is Han the protagonist? Like, this is a weird thing that I've gotten in my comments. Of people like, well, why did the Force choose Rey?
Right. You can't think of a
it just did. I don't know. Why did it choose Anakin? I don't know.
So the problem with that question is that it begs another question. Why didn't it choose that other person? But if you're just asking why did it go to Rey, then you're in a much better position to answer that question. Like, okay, let's think about why it would go to Rey. Apparently, it doesn't want to go to Kylo, so that's it.
Rey then gets captured later on. Kylo Ren tries to read her mind, and she not only rejects him, but then reads his mind. And remember, Kylo had been trained by Luke Skywalker and then trained by Snoke, yet Rey, who had no established mentor of any kind, overpowers him.
So she did have a mentor prior to this, which was Maz Kanata.
But more importantly, he very quickly glosses over her getting captured.
Right.
You notice that, right? Like
there's a moment where she is completely helpless and paralyzed.
She pulls out her gun, and she doesn't know how to use the gun, and she turns off the safety, and she tries to shoot him, and she gets paralyzed. She gets captured. She failed. Like they try to save her, and they are unable to. They could not save her. And it's interesting because people will gloss over that, but that's like watching The Empire Strikes Back and like seeing Luke fight Vader, lose his hand, fails, loses, falls down a shaft, gets rescued, and now has a new robotic hand. Like people act like losing his hand was like a big part of his character training. No, he has a new hand 2 minutes later, and he's fine. I just don't understand the logic.
So he says in this frame, flawless victory. So first of all, the first flaw in this victory is that she is captured. So again, already it's not a flawless victory. Second, not flawless victory is that she is being probed in like she is being tortured essentially until she fights back, until the Force awakens.
So any argument pertaining to the Force being supercharged more or less falls apart there, since if that were true, Kylo should be supercharged with the benefit of training, and so Rey should have still been no match for Kylo.
And we're running into the power levels here, but whatever.
So instead, the only explanation for her overpowering Kylo in this instance is, you guessed it, she's just awesome.
He's injured?
No.
Oh, no, not he was shot with a bowcaster that we saw over and over again. One-shot people and yeet them across the room.
Oh, I don't think
he was like.
I don't think we're there yet. I think we're talking about overpowering his interrogation. So this is also deductive reasoning. If when I saw that happening, the first time I was watching the movie, I was like, oh, he must have done something to awaken something in her, or there must be something between them that allowed her to also peer into his mind, because he could see hers and then she could see his, and then, you know, the dialogue after the fact is her like saying, you know, you're afraid, and so she's privy to his emotions at that point. So you have to wonder, this isn't her overpowering him, this is him unlocking something within her that allows her to see into his mind. She's not beating him. The only thing that she beats him with is, like, I guess, pushing the right button. You're afraid you'll never be as strong as Darth Vader, and he gets triggered over that. I don't think she beats him in this regard. She says the right thing.
No, she doesn't beat him. Just something happens that he didn't expect. Like we saw early in this movie that he did this to Poe. Now, Poe is a very loyal soldier, and wouldn't give up information. He was able to get it out from her, from him. But as you're watching this, I don't know about you, but I'm like there's an obvious connection between these two, and I don't know what it is.
Right.
And this is what we are trying to find. This is the purpose of this trilogy. Like, we've set up the good guy, we've set up the bad guy. You know, people were looking at this as Luke and Vader, and there is some sort of connection, whether, you know, at the beginning we thought it was that Vader killed his father. That was their connection. That's what this whole story was honed to. This one, they did leave us with a mystery. There was a connection. We didn't know what that was, but what we knew was that this guy who we saw do this before to someone else, try to do it to her, and it became a two-way connection. And he didn't know why. That's why he ended it, and he goes to Snoke to try and find out why.
And that's what I was
the whole point of the movie.
That's what I was gonna point to next. Like, if you're watching this, like, authentically, the next scene is Snoke saying she resisted you. Like, first of all, she didn't beat him, but she resisted him, and he goes on to acknowledge she is strong with the Force, untrained but stronger than she knows, meaning something, as you said, happened unexpectedly. She said the right things and triggered him with the use of Anakin's name, or invoking the name of Darth Vader. And he got caught by surprise. She didn't, like, overpower him and, like, mind maze him in return. Like, he just, like, whoa, what the hell is going on here? And then just left, you know, he had a tantrum or something.
Then, if that weren't enough, she controls the mind of his stormtrooper to let her go and leave his weapon behind. But she grew up with stories about the Jedi, so of course it's reasonable, some man-bunned man-baby might whimper. Firstly, this would be...
I don't have a man bun, but that moment was pretty damn dope in the movie. Like, I'll be honest, I didn't have an explanation for it. She tried it 3 times.
I had a problem with it.
No, well, yeah, that's the thing. I didn't have an explanation for it. She tried 3 times, and so at least in my case, this is where I was starting to theorize Rey Kenobi, like her connection to Kenobi, the mind trick master. I did have a problem with it until The Last Jedi came out. So I'm not gonna sit here and say this wasn't a moment that was unexplained. I won't call it a Mary Sue moment, right? This is one of those moments where in a trilogy of movies, you kind of need the second and third movie to kind of round out the information you have. So, and it's
otherwise really, it's a bad trilogy.
yes. That's why I'm always careful with these moments, because it would be irresponsible for me to say this is a plot hole, she's a Mary Sue, or this is not how something works when we do not have the broader picture. So in this moment, I was like, how does she know how to do that? Like, I was questioning it. But then it also led to me theorizing who she was. So it wasn't really a huge kind of big deal. Like, I was in the moment of The Force Awakens. She had touched the lightsaber, had a vision. Maz Kanata gave her that quick rundown on the Force, which is what Qui-Gon did with Anakin, is what Obi-Wan did with Luke. And she had this kind of like, mind meld with Kylo. And at the time, I thought maybe that's how she learned. I don't know.
And that ended up being correct.
Yes.
But yeah, I was in the same boat. I was like, and I had people like, I thought it was dumb that she knew how to do the mind trick. And I was like, well, I mean, if Kylo Ren was rooting around in her mind, seeing things, seeing her history, her past, her interactions, understanding how she felt about Han, how she looked at him, then, and she showed the same thing, you're afraid that you won't become as strong as Darth Vader. She saw things in his past, in his mind, in his feelings. So I just assumed like, maybe she saw something and was like, I'll try that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I didn't like it when I saw it in theaters. But I didn't write it off. I was like, I'm hopeful that we'll get an explanation from it.
And we did not long after that, because there is an explanation in the novelization.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, we're going straight off of the movies, and we've acknowledged that this part of the movie we were kind of hesitant to kind of like accept at face value, but just if you're curious, right? The novelization hints that Kylo is concerned with what she had just learned by going into his mind, right? And then we go into The Last Jedi, and he's just like, oh, the floodgates have opened. She's peered into all of his abilities and knowledge and stuff like that. But essentially, like, after watching the movie, I think 2 days afterwards, I had read the novelization. I was like, oh, so she was learning things as well.
Like hearing stories about Bruce Lee and suddenly being able to perform the 1-inch punch. And I don't know about you, but outmatching someone's trained thought probe before controlling someone's mind sounds pretty advanced.
Well, I mean, while we're acknowledging the mind trick portion, we have to counter argue that she did not outmatch Kylo.
A far cry from using the Force to guide your instincts a bit.
Wait a second. That went from like reasonable to completely and unexpectedly ridiculous in a half a second, because you went from someone who had mentoring, just as much mentoring from Maz, then being probed by Kylo, and then Kylo running into some sort of catalyst that causes Rey to look back into his own mind. She doesn't win, she doesn't beat him, she surprises him. And then she, through trial and error, gets the mind trick to work on a weak-minded First Order trooper. Then we go to blowing up the Death Star, using the Force to aid him in that feat is not as good as that.
So that's another thing that I really do think that as a community we need to focus more on, is like, instead of focusing on the amount of training that someone has got, listen to what's being trained, what's being taught to them, and how well they respond and repeat that, right? I mean, if you're going off of A New Hope, it's just a small piece of dialogue. It's like, so the Force controls our actions, and then Obi-Wan says you can also tell it what to do. Now, throughout this entire film, we only have one instance of her. No, this entire film is just her going off of instinct, letting the Force guide her actions. This entire film.
And according to A New Hope, what is Obi-Wan's first lesson to Luke?
Let go of your conscious mind. Conscious self.
And act on instinct. Your eyes can deceive you. Don't trust them. So, like, what do you get from that? You need lots of training? No. I mean, you can certainly train. This is what I always say to everyone. The Force is intuitive first, or instinctual first. This is a better word. Technical later. We see people in Children of the Force, Clone Wars, an infant doing telekinesis. Clearly, it's not an impressive feat to do that. Now, can the infant rotate it on like cardinal axes? No, probably not. It's just rudimentary telekinesis. So, of course, you can use the Force instinctually. It's just you need the training to be technically good at it, have high accuracy, and just in general be more efficient with it. Just like Yoda being able to efficiently lift a heavy object and not break the back, like him being able to Simulfaturis a greater distance than Luke and not kill himself. You know, wisdom, technical training versus instincts.
And second of all, Luke had also heard stories about the Jedi. He just didn't know his father.
Wait. Is that Luke learning or knowing stories about the Jedi? That one line from Obi-Wan?
I think that's what he's trying to say.
I know this guy is being as charitable as possible with these dialogue, but really, I was once a Jedi Knight, the same as your father. And then so, what's a Jedi? Okay, Luke, you've known stories of the Jedi as well. Okay, let's just go on.
Father was one. One might say she siphoned the knowledge from Kylo Ren when she read his mind.
I don't know when he made this video. If he made this immediately after The Force Awakens, you'd be dead on about that one.
If this were true, then there would be no need for Jedi temples and no real need for decades of training.
Well, yes, he's right about that, except the fact that, like, again, you need to update your information as the trilogy fills out, right? The dyad, that's what happened. So of course, if you're going off of just, oh, she siphoned his knowledge, that seems a bit unrealistic, but we'll see.
I've never understood when people try to say this, and now I realize they're just quoting an old Literature Devil video. That's hilarious to me. of just, well, then why is there training at all if that could happen? You know, like they're in a dyad, like they are intrinsically linked through the Force. Yeah, but then why can't you just like
dyad everyone
siphon
else?
Things from Yoda's mind? Like Yoda's, are you in a dyad with Yoda? If you are, okay, more power to you. But like if you're not, it's not. What?
See, we're me and Choco are able to dyad stuff to each other's minds, but no one else is. Like everyone else in the community, I have no idea what they're thinking.
A master could just copy and paste his knowledge and drag it over to his Padawan. And remember, the expanded universe at this point is considered non-canon, and such a feat never took place in any of the movies. So if Rey's newly acquired Force powers were gained through either of these scenarios, it would again be another rule being created solely for the sake of Rey, the plot bending to her needs. But movie-wise,
there's no rules. I don't understand these points about rules being created. I'm okay. Can you rewind just a second? I want to hear something.
Learns these things because she's just awesome.
All right. Well, is it because she's just awesome? No, it's because she's in a dyad based off of the mythic dyad with Kylo Ren. And you're absolutely right that the expanded universe was never considered to be canon. However, they have considered those stories being continuity until they conflict with canon, right? Those aren't my words, that's Lucasfilm's words. And they've started to bring some items from Legends into canon. And what's interesting is we get some really cool stuff, like how Revan and Bastila would be able to share information or feel what each other are feeling through the Force, share each other's dreams. The same thing with
Kreia and Mitra being able to share knowledge as well, knowledge and training.
Well, I mean, when she lost her hand, and yeah, they even shared feelings and stuff. Like, it's not something that was being created just for Rey, and it's something that would be expanded on throughout the trilogy, and something new to add to the Star Wars universe. I don't.
There's nothing wrong with anything being created for the Force. for the future. It's this language that it's being created for Rey that's problematic, or she's just awesome, which isn't the case, right? There's always a reason for things to happen, and the explanation for her sharing this connection with Kylo is evident in The Force Awakens. And then when we venture outward, we know of the mythic Dyad, but within the confines of the movie, we know there's a connection between the two. So you're either being hyperbolic or you're being unnecessarily ridiculous to point to, oh, then Rey is just going to siphon knowledge from everyone. Like you realize how unnecessarily ridiculous that sounds when you're watching one movie.
But also, even if that was the case, that was the plot point on Heroes, and that first season was dope.
Already had plenty of practice with pilot.
Again, we don't know what a T-16 is, and we don't know what ROMPRATs are. So, if you're going to infer his piloting skills based on his dialogue, you need to infer Rey's piloting skills based on her dialogue.
Also, just real quick, there's piloting is to Luke as fighting is to Rey. The fight between Rey and Kylo Ren is her Death Star moment, and they're identical in a lot of ways, but we'll get there.
Shooting. So in the end, the Force was only supplemental to his victory and not the entire cause. Rey, however, was already reading minds and dominating brains, both without proper instruction and still no assistance.
So yeah, we already know that this is where everyone's getting their points. Reading minds, dominating brains, no training. When it was her mind being read, and then she pushed back on that. She didn't dominate brains. She persuaded a stormtrooper. You can say it's dominating brains, but it's a lowly brain to dominate. And then, of course, this is bullet point of no training. Of course, she has very little training, but she has her combat training. She has, that mentorship from Maz Kanata. So if you're going to assign Luke any kind of charitability with his mentor, or Anakin Skywalker with his mentor during the pod race in Qui-Gon, then you have to assume that Maz has the same, if not more value than both of them. So she doesn't have no training.
From a mentor. How is this possible? Well, because she's just awesome. And
again, it comes down to this. That's not it.
And we get to see the arguments I've been making put into action.
If this is the first time you're seeing Finn be useful, then you were not paying attention.
Finn was very useful in telling her exactly how the First Order type pilots operate. He was useful letting her know why they were being chased. Mm-hmm. So he was useful from the very moments after they met. If this is the first time that again, I don't think he was useful.
Movie. He was useful when he helped Poe escape.
True. I mean, I was thinking in the context of Rey.
Well, yeah. But in the context of him being useful
is instant.
And not only hold his own against Kylo, but
no, he fought in the battle. He used the lightsaber against his friends. I don't understand. Come on. I think we're getting more and more into I didn't watch the movie territory.
Now let's take a look at Rey, a scavenger.
They made a lot of emphasis on the power of a Wookiee bowcaster, and Kylo Ren got shot in the stomach with one before the scene and was bleeding out. Do you think he's gonna mention that?
Probably not. No. In fact, most definitely not.
I'm getting some liar vibes of Your Honor, I object. On what grounds? It's devastating to my case. Sustained.
I just on this point, however, I'm you can't really. It's not a Mary Sue moment to think that as soon as Finn gets routed, Rey regains consciousness. I mean, what are we going to see 10 minutes of just her sleeping? No, the movie's gonna get to it. He gets routed. She needs to pick up where he left off. It's not a good movie if she's still unconscious.
The benefit of Finn's decades of military level training, has no sign of a mentor, and is completely self-taught.
Okay, so she is self-taught from her being lone survivor having to fight off other scavengers. She has a mentor.
Question: if you train, then do you have training?
Yeah.
You know who else was self-taught though, right? Luke Skywalker.
Yes.
No, I'm serious. In Return of the Jedi, Luke. In Empire Strikes Back, when Luke goes to Yoda, we see what he has learned so far, which is nothing. He spends a few weeks there, and he fails, and then he leaves, and we see the results of his training there.
Mm-hmm.
He gets his butt handed to him, and he doesn't go back. So everything that he learned in The Last Jedi is stuff that he learned in the year in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And he strolls into Jabba's palace, force chokes, mind tricks. He has mastery over his telekinesis now. He is an expert level swordsman. Like, he's able to fight with Vader. Who taught him these things? Did Yoda teach him lightsaber training? Yoda didn't have a lightsaber. Did he fight against Yoda? No. Did Yoda teach him mind tricks? They were the only sentient guys on the planet. Who would he teach him? Did Yoda teach him force chokes? No, he's self-taught, and it's okay. It's nothing bad.
I think a better example for just how absurd this argument is his force pull in the Wampa Cave. He had zero training. Like Obi-Wan, he died on the Death Star. So who taught him how to force pull? Who taught him telekinesis?
Who told him that was possible?
Exactly. So zero training, not even zero self-taught, because he didn't know you could telekinesis with the Force. He knew you could mind trick. He knew you could do lightsaber combat. He knew you could deflect using the Force, and you can use the Force to aim and help you instinctually, kind of like, but this is that example right here. No training, just comes out. How did you guys feel about that when you watched that in The Empire Strikes Back in the beginning for the first time?
I was fist pumping.
Exactly. I started writing my own book. It was a really rudimentary and horrible book, but that was my first foray into world building. I was like, he just moved that lightsaber. So anyway.
How does she fare against Kylo Ren, who, if you recall, has been trained by not one, but two legendary mentors? Well,
is Snoke Dyad moment. Is Snoke a legendary mentor?
He seems more of a stranger danger to me, but more importantly, do you think he's going to mention how, like, Kylo Ren completely and utterly overwhelmed her and she was in full retreat for like 99% of the fight until she recalled what Maz Kanata taught her?
I doubt it. Let's play it through his entire assessment of this battle.
Well, she defeats him, of course. Did you forget that she's just awesome? Does anyone remember Luke's duel against Darth Vader in A New Hope?
Hold on.
He doesn't know A New Hope.
There's a lot of time left in this video. I'd say around 10 minutes left. Is he done with that?
So stupid.
Is he done with that point? Okay, so he didn't. He didn't mention he was tormented by killing his father. He didn't mention he was wounded in the gut with a bowcaster. He didn't mention that the first half of the fight was a complete wash where he pushed her.
First 90%.
Right.
Yeah.
He pushed her all the way to the edge and then said, "You need a teacher. I can show you the ways of the Force." So already you need to think, or at least infer, he don't want to kill her. He doesn't, and he's not looking to beat her. If he wanted to kill her, he would have killed her in the first 10 seconds.
But a villain who like defeats the hero and then at the end, instead of killing them, goes into a monologue. That's super new though, right? That's a new trope. That's not something we see very often, right? Like, no, that happens all the time in all sorts of media.
But
and
the point is, he ignored everything that happened in that fight. The only way she was able to push him back is that his wound had finally taken its course and he was stumbling and limping.
Hey, it's very easy to prove your point if you ignore all of the facts.
That's very true. It's very true. Last thing on this, he said, I can show you the ways of the Force. You need a teacher. She closed her eyes like Maz told her to. Felt it. The light, it's always been there. And then she used that instinctually to fight him back. And at that point, Kylo does not have an infinite amount of stamina, and he was using the dark side to sustain himself through his injury, was reaching his limits, and he started limping, and he started, showing in his body language that it was affecting his fighting. Just little stabs and pokes here and there was causing him to recoil really heavily. So you can tell his injuries are taking a toll. He's at the end of his rope. But
Element 7, don't Sith get stronger when they get injured?
They do, but that doesn't mean that they can go on forever, and that doesn't mean that the injury is zilched out. Like, you can use the pain and the rage from that injury to give you that boost, but that injury is still there. so the more you use it, the more you're pumping through it, the more it's going to have an effect on your body. And the longer you go, the longer that injury is going to bleed out, the longer it's just the reality. He didn't staunch the vein. He didn't stop the bleeding. He's using the pain to sustain himself, but at the end of the day, he's going to run out of that stamina. And he's not Darth Maul, that's for sure. So
yeah, I had someone tell me, it's like, no, the Sith love the pain. They can get their limbs chopped off and in soldiers, and you're like, wait, so like Dooku, how he got more powerful when both his hands got chopped off, right?
Or when Savage got his hand chopped off and they had to retreat, right?
Or when Maul got cut in half, he just whooped Obi-Wan because he was mad about that.
Yeah.
Right? Or how Anakin, when he lost 3 limbs in one fell swoop, got up and start whooping ass, right? No, we have.
Listen, the bottom line here is, even if we were to grant everyone the EU concept of the Lord of Pain, if you were to cut off every single part of that guy's body and he had sustained himself with the dark side, he'd still be just a head.
Not to mention, he did die. He lost. It didn't stop him from losing. It helped him to get back up after he lost. I don't know. It's much like Darth Maul. That point does not have a leg to stand on.
It helped Darth Maul sustain himself. His singular hatred for Kenobi helped sustain him, but he didn't crawl out of the hole and was like, "Oh, I'm mad. Now I'm going to defeat you." No, again, your injuries are there. It's gonna take its toll. You can't go forever.
That is Darth Vader.
With what training, though? I just want to. You can put it in the comment section below. With what training did he finally defeat, in his final form, Darth Vader?
Taught a few things by Rey because, well, she's just awesome.
She didn't teach him anything. Yes. He taught her a couple things, but Maz taught her about the Force.
Knowing that Unkar Plutt had a compressor installed, and then knowing how to bypass said compressor, is not her teaching Han how to do something. Right here is a very, very, very transparent look at fragile masculinity, and I hate to bring out that buzzword.
It is. I've been thinking about it the entire time. But that's really the only thing I can come to.
If you think the presence of a woman achieving things is someone being an idiot in the face of it, or them trying to teach you something or lecture you, I say no more.
Narratively speaking, Kylo still should have dominated in his bout with Rey.
He did.
He did, and
also he fought them one after another.
Right.
So.
But this statement right here is also assuming that he wanted to. Even if he did, he pushed her all the way to the cliff. He pushed her all the way to the cliff, had her dead to rights.
He could have Spartan kicked her off.
Right. Doesn't mean anything if he didn't want to, or if that wasn't his purpose. He wanted to recruit her. At the end of the day, if you're going to excise the injuries, if you're going to excise, the mental torment from him, and just think he should have won, then you have to at least accept that maybe he didn't want to. Maybe he didn't want to kill her, he just wanted to recruit her.
And after spending a number of days training with the legendary Yoda, Vader still easily dominates.
So this is the point where it gets less and less charitable, because now it's not A New Hope versus The Force Awakens. This is all of his movies versus The Force Awakens, which is stupid.
It showed us that despite Luke's growth, he still had a long way to go. With Rey and Kylo, the setup begins perfectly. He's wounded from getting shot by Chewbacca's bowcaster, and his fight with Finn, considering Rey's vast inexperience relative to his own, he still should have defeated her, if not through battle, then by the Force alone.
It's not going to be true the more you say it. With all of these instances of he should have been able to defeat her, it doesn't make it seem like it's actually a thing. If he is trying to recruit her and it backfires, that's just way of life, So whether she's inexperienced or he's wounded and he's got more training, the fact of the matter is he should have beaten her if he wanted to beat her. But again, like we mentioned, he pushed her all the way to the cliff and could have killed her. He could have killed her in the first 10 seconds, when she was being clumsy with her stabs.
He could have killed her the first time they met. And since now he's including other films, he could have killed her in The Last Jedi. He could have killed her in The Rise of Skywalker.
Alone. I mean, a Deus Ex Machina has to swoop in and separate them anyway. Why not have her lose? Remember, this is the first movie in Rey.
Now I'm starting to think that the ultimate issue isn't that she's a Mary Sue, is that she didn't lose. And if you made this video titled "Why I Think Rey Should Have Lost," might have come across
that'd
better.
be a great video.
His trilogy, her first tender steps into her own hero's journey, her loss would have raised the stakes. Show us that Rey, like Luke when he first began, still has quite the journey yet to travel before she reaches her full potential.
So the difference here between her potential growth for the story is that they're in fact antithesis of each other. Because Luke wants to adventure, he wants to go off where she wants to stay and wait for her parents. So that's where her growth stems from.
He partially felt like The Force Awakens was a clone of A New Hope, but the characters took different trajectories and came up in different forms. And I don't think but he's not able to parse it. Kylo Ren does not exactly mimic Vader, and Rey does not exactly mimic Luke. And the differences between those two stories are all of the things that he's complained about.
And you can literally see the moment
Rian
when this
Johnson?
happens because Kylo does dump.
Maybe he did this after The Last Jedi. I don't know, but then that would that would make things worse.
Can you go back? I have no idea when we switched to Rian Johnson being relevant.
He supports this idea. It's almost as if they had the competent writer do the script and Rian Johnson snuck in his fan fiction when the real writer went off on coffee.
It's so dumb. It's so dumb.
Break. And you can literally see the moment when this happens because Kylo does dominate.
Oh, I'm so glad you can acknowledge that.
Begin with. Then the good writer goes off for coffee, Rey becomes a Mary Sue again, and defeats Kylo pretty easily.
So, okay. He acknowledged
Wait. If you are getting dominated in a fight, but you ultimately come on top, can they say it happened pretty easily?
Can I just...
What does Rian Johnson have to do with this fight?
I don't know. I just know that...
What is he talking about?
Let me reiterate. I just know that in the same breath, he said he does dominate her, but then she turns full Mary Sue and then easily turns things around. He wasn't like about to deliver the final blow. He stood there and was just like waiting for her answer. That doesn't sound like someone who is trying to kill them. or dominate them or even win the fight. He's so enamored by her response to the question or the proposition that he should train her, that he's staring at her while her eyes are closed. And at that point, she's kind of recalling Maz's, mentor. I'm just going to say mentor words because they like to throw that word out in these arguments. She recalls it, then I'm at least inferring that his injuries took a toll on him, and then she started to fight instinctually with the aid of the Force.
And this allows a hero to turn a near defeat into a victory. But Rey didn't have a mentor.
Okay, that's where
she had
Maz. This
video is horrible.
We're being as authentic as possible, and it's getting really difficult to kind of. We're at least now treating it with kid gloves at this point.
Intimately enough to spark her awakening. Rey isn't remembering the words of a loved one or the wisdom of a teacher.
How could you possibly infer that? When someone closes their eyes in a moment that looks like that, do you think they're just closing their eyes and getting like a 20-second power nap? Like, they're recalling something.
And now they're hitting some old classic rock beats of like, give me the beat, boys, I'm feeding my soul.
She just closes her eyes and is suddenly now able to defeat Kylo Ren because she's just awesome.
All right, we established what really happened.
Real shame too. Had Rey lost, then when next they met, the meeting would be tense since the audience wouldn't be certain what a fully healed Kylo Ren.
Huh?
He shows a picture of Rey losing, of Rey being kidnapped, and then says, if Rey lost, and you're like, but she got kidnapped in that picture you just showed.
And a newly trained Rey would truly be capable of. Instead, Rey didn't receive training because Luke turned into an edgy 13-year-old. And
okay, are we going off of Last Jedi now? I don't understand.
Isn't an edgy 13-year-old super reflective on life?
I don't know. Not at all.
If you were gonna call someone an edgy 13-year-old, it's not Kylo Ren. It's not Hux. You're gonna go with Luke, who has a reasonable response to like the weight of the galaxy being on his shoulders for decades.
We can make another video on Luke in The Last Jedi.
Yeah. Sorry.
And because Rey didn't actually need it, because she's already so awesome.
The point he's trying to make is that she's awesome, and that's his explanation for it. But we've already provided ample explanations for just using the movie and dialogue.
It's cool that he thinks she's awesome, though.
Yeah, I mean, if you take away one thing from this video, take away that he's using so much evidence, so much dialogue to help support Luke. But when it comes to Rey, all he shows you is, you got nothing because she's so awesome. Why doesn't he show the same level of scrutiny and analysis for Rey? We've provided it, and we've countered every single one of his points where he says, we got nothing, she's got no training, there's no explanation. We've given it all. So hopefully you get all those explanations.
Okay, because she's so awesome.
So we're into this now. We're into The Last Jedi. First and foremost, telekinesis is a very basic skill. And even if it were a more advanced skill, she learned from Luke. Luke is doing a handstand carrying Yoda, trying to pile rocks one on top of each other. Rey is standing there. That's it. She can lift all the rocks she wants. She's got the raw power. She's got the wisdom from Luke on how to do things. Just breathe. His first lesson was lesson enough. She already knew about, if we're going off of The Force Awakens and then like the stuff with their connection in the Force and her learning what she learned from Kylo, she already knows all of these basics. She just needs to know how to understand them and use them. And Luke provides her with the lessons for her to do so. But this is not an impressive feat. I don't know about you, Choco, but like, she's standing there. She's undistracted. She has all the time in the world to lift these boulders. Luke is doing so many things and being tested.
It's not about how long it takes Luke to learn something. And of course, you're absolutely right. We are not comparing apples to apples, right? It's what is the lesson that's being taught? Focus. control, concentration.
Concentrate.
He's doing a handstand and getting visions of the future and all this stuff. But just because Luke has trouble concentrating does not mean that Rey is having trouble concentrating. And I don't understand what the comparison is. That's like saying I don't even have an apt illustration, and I'm usually really good at those. But like,
I just think it's a false equivalency. That's all.
Yeah.
Luke,
it's not only a false equivalency, it's just it's a sheer and utter lack of proper reasoning. I see so many people who are so willing to grant the level of power to certain characters. Can you see Anakin surpassing Yoda? Yoda is 900 years old. Yoda trained for a long time.
like I can't.
A lot of people are like, oh, I mean, Anakin was like the best duelist. You know, he was going to surpass him with significantly less training. Right now people will say, well, Luke beat Vader significantly less training than Vader and less experience. Why is it such a big issue right now that someone who has had more experience and more training than Luke does something? I know, it's strange to me.
It's not strange. We know why.
Though they try to hide it by saying she's strong in the Force, you know, like Luke, who, as I said, needed intense training before he could lift a few rocks. Or
intense.
No, he
training.
didn't.
Jesus.
Luke had a mentor to teach him. He
So did Rey.
had a rival to challenge him. He
So did Rey.
had a past as a farm boy
Rey had a backstory.
to introduce him. He had training to mold him. And
She was self-trained in combat, and then she had a mentor, same as Luke.
unlike Rey, who of course don't need no man, Luke had friends to help him. Nearly
Rey had friends.
I feel like don't need no man is indicative of something.
He's down the rabbit hole at this point.
a skill and talent Rey learns or possesses throughout her journey is granted by the plot as it
No.
Wait. Technically, yes, it is granted by the plot of the film, just like everyone's skills are granted by the plot of whatever film.
I mean,
as if they're all written by someone, but it is logically inferred from the information that is given and the context of the universe with which it resides in.
If we're to look at this through the language that he uses, handed skills.
Yeah,
No.
he's wrong.
to her every command.
I don't know.
No hint
Orbit
of
or
a
DM.
mentor to teach her. No
She had Maz Kanata.
rival to challenge her. No
She had Kylo Ren.
past to introduce her.
She had a past. I mean, Jesus.
No training to mold her.
She had some training.
And she accomplished everything she needed to accomplish almost entirely on her own. Or in short, every
She
skill
didn't
Rey
accomplish what
possessed
she needed to.
No, she didn't. At least not in the context of the films he's talking about. And then she got, the mentor spiel from Maz Kanata. Same thing as Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, so.
is there because she's just awesome. You sound
Wrong.
like an angry man, baby, who just hates women.
You have something to say about that?
No, I don't think he hates women. I just think he's stupid.
Oh.
Some feral feminist might hideously gurgle. While it's true the term Mary Sue might
Well, I think he does.
So
He just said feral feminist.
Okay, well,
be misused to justify one's dislike of a character or design choice. Like those angry man babies who get upset because someone is the wrong gender, has the wrong skin color, or the wrong sexuality.
Well, now this is just getting into like Idpol and all kinds of politics that has nothing to do with Rey. Like the plot.
but here's the ultimate problem though, is he keeps talking about like no training, but within the context of what he has said, he has reached the end of The Last Jedi. Okay, but like if we watch her training with The Rock, and you might laugh and be like, oh, it's Darth Rock or whatever. But if we physically watch her training, can you say that she has no training?
No, it actually just to be 100% like transparent, I see that and I see daily routine.
Absolutely. I mean, it's clearly not the first time she's ever done that. And then she picks up the lightsaber and shows us how well it translates. And then she shows us that she's not as skilled with the lightsaber she is with her staff. But that being said, he missed half of The Force Awakens. And then he also missed 7/8 of The Last Jedi.
It almost seems like that. It almost seems like his plot, logic, and universe is consistently bending to accommodate his narrative.
He's the Mary Sue. I get it now.
So we finished watching the video, and the first time I watched it, first time around, I stopped. I think 2 minutes in, and I was like, he's being very disingenuous. He's making statements about Rey that are incorrect and false in nature, and then affording Luke all of the leeway and all of the charitability. And, I couldn't handle it. So I asked my Dyad, Darth Choco, to sit with me and watch the whole thing. And it was painful. It really was painful to watch that entire video. Hopefully, some of the points we raised helped clear up some of the things that you thought he got nothing from. And again, we were in good faith using just the movies he was talking about. We weren't using information that we have now. So yeah.
Although I wish I knew he was going to invoke things he didn't like about The Last Jedi. He kind of pulled that out of his butt at the very.
But we also didn't need to. We didn't
need to, but like I could have extra got in there.
Yeah, if you still think Rey is a Mary Sue, whatever. Don't talk to anybody. I'm sorry, I mean, don't talk to people who love the sequels. In fact, just leave them alone. Leave everyone alone. If all you have to say is things that are negative. If it helps you, just talk about things that you like. If you like the Clone Wars and the prequels, just talk about that stuff. And then when the sequels come up, exit the room if it makes it easier for you. Choco, any final thoughts?
No, the information's there. Yeah, it's there, and it's okay to not like the films or not like the characters. That's totally cool. I have a lot of friends, a lot of mutuals that don't like them. We don't agree, but we get along and we're great friends because no one just sits there and just wallows into things that they don't like. But more than that, not liking something doesn't mean that I don't understand it. It doesn't mean that I don't pay attention to it. And it doesn't mean that I can't explain things from it. It's okay to not like it, but like if you are claiming everything's a plot hole, everything's a mistake, even when it's not, it becomes disingenuous.
Absolutely.
And it hurts our community. It hurts it. So if you love Star Wars, then you should want to build a better community. Be part of that better community.
Yeah, I will add on top of that you should watch the movies, simply because how many times have you seen the originals? How many times have you seen the prequels? Now, how many times have you seen the sequels? Why don't we give the sequels enough chance that you've given to the other movies? You might know so much about the originals that you've watched A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi over 100 times, maybe over 200, and the sequels you only watched in the theaters once. And you kind of brush them off because you saw a video like that. Watch them again. You may actually enjoy it, or you may come to like some certain parts. But again, we don't tell you to watch it again so that you like them. You can have your opinion of them, but watch them again and see if you can't glean any new information that you thought was missing from your holocron before then. But if you enjoyed our video or our analysis or debunking of this video, please like and subscribe. Subscribe to Darth Choco's channel. It's youtube.com/Darth Choco. And his socials are down below as well. We have Dyad in the Force every Saturday and his High Ground podcast every Wednesday on his YouTube channel. I think that's it. On to the next one.
For the light and for life.
We are all the Republic.
May the Force be with you.